Hi students, welcome to Easy Elimu Learning Simplified. My name is Mbithe, and in today's session we are going to learn about writing memos. We will define what a memo is. We will have a look at the features of a memo, and we will also see some differences between a memo and an official or a formal letter. Remember, we have been doing a series on the different types of functional writing. So today we will focus on the memo, which is a type of functional writing. So what is a memo? A memo, and the full name for memo is memorandum, is a mode of communication, a formal mode of communication amongst members of an organization or an institution. And we can use memos for different things. For example, to notify employees of company updates, to explain new procedures, to inform members of staff of changes within a company. In the context of a school, we can have memos to communicate information from the school administration to the students. We can also have memos maybe in your different clubs and societies. You can also have memos. Maybe you can have an internal memo for members of the debate club or the journalism club and so on. So it is a mode of communication between members of a certain organization or members of a certain institution. And they are short, very, very short. And because of that, they only provide the necessary information. So if you ever have to write a memo, make sure that it only contains the necessary information. Remember, it is not a letter. And towards the end, we will have a look at the difference between a memo and a letter. But this is not a letter, so don't talk too much. Just go straight to the point and give only the information that is necessary or the information that is required. So what are some features of a memo? What are some characteristics of a memo? The first one is that it has a title, which is the name of the organization or the institution. So we can have an example. For example, you are the member of the journalism club in your school. You are the chair or the secretary, and you need to pass some information to the other members of this club. And you decide to do that by writing a memo. The first thing that we'll have is the title. What is it for? So, for example, BD High School Journalism Club internal memo. So that is a title. It shows us that one, it is for members of journalism club, but not just anywhere, for BD High School. And the title is usually at the top. That's the first thing you're going to see when you look at a memo. After that, we have the heading, and the heading has a few things. Number one, it has who is this memo from, who is it being sent to, and then the date and the subject. So it has the writer, it has the recipient, it has the date, when has this memo been written, and then the subject, what is this memo about? And so the subject is straightforward and provides a basic overview of what the memo is about. So when you're writing your memo and I come across it, I should be able to have a rough idea of what your memo is simply by looking at the subject. So remember the example you went by of a journalism club. You're in journalism club and you want to pass some information and to the other members, so you write a memo. After the title, you write it is to the all journalism club members from journalism club chair. You write the date, and then the subject, maybe reminder of a meeting or urgent meeting or something. So when I look at that, I should know that this memo is going to tell me about an upcoming meeting just by the title. So ensure that as you write your memo, the title is as specific as possible, as straightforward as possible. After the subject, we go into the opening statement. This is the statement that ushers us into the memo. It is at this point that you introduce the main idea or the main point of why you're writing this essay. This memo, sorry. So if you're writing a memo to the other members of the journalism club, maybe because you want to hold an urgent meeting, your opening statement should allude to that. Maybe there's something that went wrong somewhere and that's what you want to address. Your opening statement or your opening paragraph should allude to that. In other words, that is where you share the purpose of the memo. Why exactly are you writing this memo? To call people for a meeting, to inform them of something that has happened, to caution them from doing something, whatever it may be. It is introduced at this point, the opening statement. And then after giving that statement, you now go into the context of exactly what you mean or exactly what you're trying to point out. So you explain the opening statement further and you give clear information. Make sure you are as clear as possible. After that, we go to what action do you want them to take. If maybe you are the chair of the journalism club and maybe you guys are preparing a school magazine as a club, but as you are doing the editing, you realize that there are some photos that were not clearly taken and you'd wish for them to be retaken. So after you have introduced your memo and you have given, you have said whatever it is that you wanted to say about the photos, then the action that you want them to take is to redo the photos and then send them to you by X amount of time or on this day. You indicate it there. So in other words, that stage you may call it the next steps, where if there's any action that is required from the recipients of this particular memo, you include it there, and then after that you sign off. That is the closing statement. You sign off with a polite and professional statement, and then you include your name and your position. So your name and then your position, maybe journalism club chair or secretary or editor. So let us have a look at a sample of a memo just to see how a memo looks like. As we look at this sample, try and see if you can pick out all those features that we have just discussed. So BD High School internal memo. 2. All library prefects from Chief Librarian. Subject: observation of library rules. It has come to my attention that students are not observing library rules. They make noise in the library and are not prompt in returning library books. I therefore request you to ensure that silence is maintained in the library and books are returned on time. Forward the names of students who do not observe the library rules to the Dean of Studies. Zawadi Runo, School Chief Librarian. You can see it is very short, it is very brief and straight to the point. And you can see it has the title, the heading, the subject, and at the sign off, there's the name and the position of whoever is writing the memo. So memos are very short. If you find yourself writing a memo, be as short as possible. Just go straight to the point. Have your opening statement, make the observations that you're making, and then the next steps that you would want for the recipients of this memo to take place, and then sign out. So a few people confuse memos and official letters because they almost look the same, but they are not. So let us have a few examples of differences between a memo and an official or a formal letter. The first thing is that for a memo, the information is informal and concise, but for a formal letter, it is formal and informative. So for a formal letter, it will be more detailed. It will have a lot more information, but for a memo, it's just straight to the point and very short, and it doesn't have to be as official, but the language must be grammatically correct. The second thing is that memos are short and formal letters are quite long. So if you compare a memo and a letter, the letter will be longer because remember it has more information. And lastly, it is not necessary for you to sign off, to put your signature at sign off in a memo. You may just write your name and your position, but for a formal letter, your signature must be there. So those are three differences of formal letters and memos that you can have in mind. So that's it for memos. You can have a look at the quiz provided for further practice. You are the secretary of the environmental club in your school. Write a memo to the members of the club to appreciate their participation in a recent cleanup activity. You can attempt to do that quiz. Remember the structure of a memo, remember the characteristics of a memo. It should not be too long and it should go straight to the point. Thank you for tuning in and see you in the next session.